Our in-depth coverage of the war between Israel and Hamas continues. Senior correspondent Susan Ormiston will be with us in just a moment for all of the latest, including the ongoing diplomatic effort to get humanitarian aid into Gaza.
We are in deep and advanced negotiations with all relevant sides to make sure that an aid operation into Gaza starts as quickly as possible and with the right conditions. We are encouraged by reports that the different sides are nearing an agreement.
Those negotiations are continuing more than a day after U.S. President Joe Biden announced a deal for relief convoys. Video from earlier this week shows hundreds of vehicles loaded with food, fuel, and other urgently needed aid. But under the agreement, just a small fraction of those trucks would be allowed in. It's unclear if Canadians and other foreign nationals would be allowed to cross the border out of Gaza. This is video of people waiting on the Gaza side of the Rafah crossing. It's a far smaller crowd than what we saw when hundreds gathered there earlier this week. Rafah would be the way out for Canadians and other foreign nationals inside Gaza. Officials in Ottawa say as many as 300 Canadian citizens and permanent residents have asked for help to leave. Senior correspondent Susan Ormiston is part of the CBC News team on the ground in Israel, and she joins us now from southern Israel. So, Susan, let's start with the situation at that Rafah border crossing. Are officials any closer at this point to delivering that much-needed aid?
Well, the only concrete thing we can say is that those trucks have not started moving yet. Disappointing for many on the other side in Gaza who are waiting for at least 20 truckloads of aid, of water, fuel, and humanitarian supplies to get into Gaza. It would be the first time since this war began, but they're stuck on the Egyptian side, and that's why UN's Secretary General Antonio Guterres went there today to put pressure with his presence on the negotiations to get that border open. We do know that there were problems with the road, potholes that needed to be fixed, but there seemed to be also big political potholes, and Guterres is trying to get those negotiations to a place where they can begin to allow those trucks through. Here's what he said at the Rafah crossing.
So these trucks are not just trucks. They are a lifeline. They are the difference between life and death for so many people in Gaza. And to see them stuck here makes me be very clear. What we need is to make them move. To make them move to the other side of this wall. To make them move as quickly as possible.
Guterres is also clearly there to lend support to the UN humanitarian workers who are trying to facilitate and protect those supplies getting across. The UN has also already suffered in those airstrikes in southern Gaza. 16 of its staff have been killed so far during this war. So he's there to continue the negotiations and to help protect the people and the supplies crossing over when they do.
And Susan, in Israel, the military has started evacuating its own towns near both Gaza and Lebanon as well. So what are you able to tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking all week about that northern border, the north part of Israel. We're in the south, and the southern part of Lebanon. There's activity, military activity continuing there. There were strikes across that border. The Israeli Defense Forces say they fired on individuals who were trying to infiltrate that border today. And they are in the process of evacuating one of the largest centers on that border, Kiryat Shimona. It's more than 20,000 people. It's not going to be easy or be swift, but clearly they feel that the threat and the tension there is enough to begin that evacuation. One more thing we are hearing from the Israeli military not too long ago is that they said that those hostages that were seized on October 7th and taken back into Gaza, more than 200 of them, that they believe most of them are alive, but also that there were some dead bodies also taken back to Gaza. They say that 20 of the over 200 are children and 20 are over 60. And of course, those hostages are complicating any impending ground incursion by Israeli forces. We do expect that that will happen, but there is no indication of when.